We've got Cami McKay from the Atlanta Hawks, who is the Chief People, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer and a Howard alum, HU in the house. We've got Lindsay LaBennett, who is the Senior Director of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity at the Wasserman Group, and a North Carolina A&T alum, Aggie Pride. I'm sure she'll be talking about that. We've got Everson Walls, who's an NFL veteran, Super Bowl champion, New York Giants. He won the Super Bowl with, but played for the Dallas Cowboys for years and years, for you Cowboys fans. Also, he's the co-founder of Ethos Education Group, and he is a Grambling alum. So we got this HBCU panel here. I'm not sure if Etan tapped in yet. If you're here, Etan, welcome. I don't think you are yet, but when he comes in, we can introduce. But welcome, first of all, Cami, Lindsay, Everson, hello.
Hello, Tracy.
How are you?
Just fine. Have some work to do, but I'm going to interrupt it just for you guys.
Oh, wonderful. So we're talking all day how HBCU students can secure the bag. So we'll start with you and then go to Cami and then Lindsay. First of all, talk about your HBCU experience and coming into, when I say the real world, I'm talking about after college world. So we know you played in the NFL, and then obviously you had to use everything you had from the NFL to go into the corporate arena and with running your nonprofit. Talk about your securing the bag process, if you will.
Well, I'll tell you what, my HBCU experience was just amazing. That's how I grew up as a person. I grew up in a mixed environment, a mixed race environment, and I really thought it depleted or diluted, what I was all about as a Black man. And so going to Grambling State really reinforced the confidence in myself as a person and as a Black person that I really felt a little bit insecure about initially when I'm at 17 years old. As you go through that process at the HBCU, and especially Grambling State, talking football, talking to Eddie Robinson, things of that nature, Doug Williams was my teammate, all of that really showed me what being a professional was all about. And from there, you go from being a professional person to just being a responsible individual. Eddie Robinson taught me and reiterated many things that my parents taught me. So that allowed me to really take that in. And it allowed me to be a more responsible person and one with vision. Instead of just looking at myself as a football player, I realized that I could do more things and help a lot more people. The money situation is one thing, but when you start talking about going into foundations and trying to help others through your foundation, that's something where my business degree really came in well for me. Eddie Robinson and Grambling was all about graduating our student athletes. And so that to me was another reiteration of what my parents talked about. So therefore it was ingrained in me and allowed me to be a co-founder of my foundation, Ethos Education Group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. That's Grambling all day, every day. I love it. Cami, welcome to our program. Hello.
Hello. So glad to be here.
I was looking forward to you being here because the first time we talked, you were like, listen, if it's anything for my HBCU family, count me in. So wonderful to have you. And the same thing for you. I know that you're in the front office, if you will, at the Atlanta Hawks and with the State Farm Arena, but can you talk about how going to Howard and maybe the career path that you had helped you to get, into that space that you're in?
Sure, absolutely. I grew up, first of all, in a household where my parents went to HBCUs, Tuskegee in Alabama, Florida A&M, their parents went to HBCUs. So it was something ingrained and it was, I knew that was my destiny. In going to Howard, what I really learned from the Howard experience was, preparation. When you prepare yourself, that leads to confidence. And when you have confidence in what you can do, you don't really have limitations. So it broke down those barriers of being afraid to try something new, try to do something a little bit different. So when I look at my career, I started out in hospitality and entertainment. I worked at Walt Disney World for many years, grew up from an HR standpoint in that particular space, moved on to a number of other organizations, but again, hospitality, entertainment. The opportunity to join a sports team came one day out of the blue. I'd never worked in sports before. To be honest with you, at the time, I wasn't sure. Atlanta Hawks, is that football, hockey? I wasn't sure. Thank goodness for Google. But now I know. Awesome basketball. But because of the confidence that over that time in the career, it made me feel, why not? Why not, explore such an opportunity? So I get the delight, the pleasure each and every day in my particular role, helping to lead the organization to greatness, building culture, helping to create the best environment for our workforce moving forward.
I am so excited. That is really good. I like you when I started working with George Lynch, which we went to college together, and of course he played for the NBA. But he always sometimes will be out and he'll see some of his fellow NBA veteran or current players, and I always get the names wrong. Like I am so embarrassing to him because he's like, just don't say a name, just don't. We girls got to do better, I guess, sometimes in that area. But thank you for that. Now, here is some Black Girl Magic coming up. Lindsay LaBennett, who went to North Carolina A&T, is in sports management at the Wasserman Group. I believe, Lindsay, you can correct me. I think you all are number 7, or you're in the top 10 for sports management agencies in the country, I believe. Talent management.
Correct. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
I know you got to give your Aggie pride out, so go ahead.
Aggie pride.
Nice to have
Glad
you
to be here.
board.
Thank you for having me. I love HBCUs, and A&T is so special to me. Similar to Cammie, both of my grandparents went to A&T. My grandmother, Dr. Velma Spate Buford, is still very active. But being an Aggie is, we say Aggie pride, and what that means to us is we show up very boldly and proudly, and we lean into our excellence. And that experience, those 4 years were the best 4 years of my life. And I am very sure of that now. And part of that is because, one, you are surrounded by a plethora of Black diversity, right? So you come to A&T, and I'm from Maryland. I got to meet Black hippies from California, Black engineers from New York, Black people who were into music from the Midwest. And I think it taught me an important lesson that in Blackness, we have our own beautiful diversity, right? We don't have to look outside of us to find diversity. So A&T really exposed that to me. I will also say just our homecoming, our bands, I pledged AKA when I was there, that whole experience. You're never going to be surrounded by just Black excellence at all times. I'll also say the administration, they did a phenomenal job of pouring into us while we were there and making sure that when we left A&T, that we weren't going to shy away from who we are. When people ask me where I go, I say North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. It is a top HBCU. And so often when you are Black and operating in white spaces, sometimes we shy away from our Blackness, but my experience at A&T is like, we're the opposite. We're gonna be loud and bold. So when I see someone in the airport, when I'm in a meeting and someone is an Aggie, all of that goes out the window and we're family. So I'm just really grateful for the experience of being an Aggie. And for those people who are considering, students who are considering a college, an HBCU experience is unlike any other. You will not be able to replace it. So I encourage everyone to look at all the different options that are out there. Obviously I'm biased and I think A&T is the illustrious and the greatest, but that's just that pride. So again, thank you for having me. Interested to talk and learn and share as much as my intel. Oh, let me go my background. I just got so hyped about A&T, I forgot. I work at Wasserman, but I've been in sports for 15 years. I started off my career at NASCAR. From there, I went to Octagon, and then I went to Wasserman. I've been at Wasserman for 11 years. The first 9, I was focused on the NFL side of the business. I was managing brand partnerships for major corporations like Microsoft, Verizon, Lenovo. But then the Colin Kaepernick situation happened, and I realized I couldn't do any more code switching. I couldn't do any more being quiet in the room. And I had to stand up for what I knew was right, even if that was uncomfortable, right? Because I was operating in a space where I was surrounded by white men, and white men don't want to be reminded of their privilege and they don't want to talk about race. But I was like, no, we can't do that anymore. So then from there, I kind of pushed for a role that was dealing directly with equity inclusion. And that's what I'm doing now. So I support our athletes and our brand partners to make sure that they understand their obligation to the Black community as much as they leverage our culture and our athletic prowess, that they need to pour back into us. So that's the work I'm doing now.
I love it. And I know even on some of our HBCU Heroes projects, you have helped us to get, some of the athletes from your agency have come on board to do, we did the HBCU voter drive together last year, adopt an HBCU, all kinds of stuff. So thank you for all of that throughout the year. So because Everson is an athlete, I have a separate question to ask him. And then for you and Cammie, I want to tee you up to talk about when you look for, because both of you all are on diversity panels, the diversity in your respective companies. So I wanted you all to talk about what you look for when you're trying to get students to come on board, whether it's an internship or job opportunity, so we can give them some takeaways on how to get involved at Wasserman or at the Hawks, because Cammie says they are always hiring at the Hawks, so we need her to expound on that. And I know Wasserman is diversifying as well. So before we get to that, Everson, back to you. Super Bowl champ, all of that. I wanted to ask you, with what you learned from sports to going into the real business world of corporate culture, what do you define as leadership, and how has your leadership been able to get you into doors that sometimes those get blocked? I've seen some athletes who kind of come off of playing football, come off of being an athlete, and then they didn't have a master plan to secure the bag after that. They did secure it while playing, but afterwards it sometimes it falls apart. So tell us, define leadership and define securing the bag long-term goal play.
Well, I tell you what, the leadership role was kind of tough for me because as an individual, that's how I played. But the particular position I played, you don't really have to meld with any other teammates. You just go out there, you try to shut this receiver down, or you try to control a particular situation as an individual. But as being part of a team, sometimes you might be elected a captain, or you might be a guy that might be leading the team in particular stats or categories. They're going to look for you at times for leadership. And to me, it was all about accountability. To me, that is leadership. You have to be accountable for yourself first. I recall I was a union rep back in 1987. Yes, I'm old. I get it. Thank you very much. So while being back there in 87, I really failed as a union leader because I assumed that everyone thought like I did. Like, okay, we're talking about the future of players coming up. We, as present players, we won't be able to benefit from what we're striking for and sacrificing for. So we're doing this for the generation ahead of us. To me, I thought that made perfect sense because that's what union is all about. But when you have players and teammates who don't think that way, I couldn't fathom that. And I failed as a leader because instead of trying to be empathetic about it, I was very aggressive going the other way. So you have to, first of all, have your stuff together. Be accountable to yourself and understanding what leadership is really about. It's not about you taking charge. It's about making others come together and think like you think. And even if we don't think the same way, I have to understand where they're coming from if I'm going to try and win them over to be part of that concerted effort. And so that's where that leadership kind of eluded me initially. And as I've gotten older, then I realized that it's not all about what I think, that there are so many people out there that have different ideas, and those ideas just might be better than yours. That's something where I had to put my ego aside and realize that there are people out there with voices that are different from mine, even though we might be going the same direction.
All right, good advice, good advice. So Cammie, you are up next, my dear. Tell us, because this is the burning question. You all always are hiring at the Hawks. So tell the students, how do they secure the bag and try and apply for jobs and internships at some of the roles that are available with the Hawks?
Absolutely. I'll start coming out of the gate. We are a hospitality entertainment organization. So what that means is attitude. Attitude matters so much. People who are enthusiastic, they're ready to come to work, ready to make a difference, ready to put smiles on people's face in different ways. So attitude, good communication skills, strong work ethic, where you're dependable, reliable. The beauty in our particular organization is there are a number of different career paths that you could go down. You could be in marketing, you could be in human resources, you could be in analytics. The destiny is up to you, but it all starts with being prepared, doing your research, knowing the organization, knowing a little bit about the leaders. The beauty of it is now with LinkedIn, you can go online and really learn a lot so you can have a great conversation when you get the opportunity. I'm big on being prepared. Preparation, when preparation meets opportunity, that's when amazing things happen. So we encourage you, come look at us, come online, look at our employment opportunities. We just launched, as a matter of fact, the letters went out today, acceptance letters for an internship program that we have this summer. It's all about the business of basketball, where you get to learn about the business behind the scenes from our leaders and C-suite or what have you. We're going to do it again next summer, so please look out for it. But come to our website, look for jobs, employment opportunities, and I'm on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out because we'd love to have a conversation to help you prepare for your future career.
Perfect. And what is the website that they can go to for job opportunities and internship opportunities?
Sure, it's www.nba.com/hawks/employment.opportunities.
Perfect. And we'll also link to our website after this so that the students can follow up with that as well. Thank you for that. And then back to you, Lindsay. So I'm not sure if Wasserman is currently hiring, but I know my girl has been, because you've been talking about this with me for a year. You are in on the oversight committee and helping for diversity efforts there. So kind of share with us the path that Wasserman is taking, and if there are roles that might be available either today or coming up where students might be able to apply if they want to follow in your footsteps.
Yes, well, we're definitely hiring, and I'll link the website in the chat. It's teamwas.com/think opportunities, but I'll put that in the chat. But we are always hiring on a rolling basis. I think the thing with sports agencies is often we hire based on need, right? So if we sign a huge contract with Verizon to handle all of their NFL business, we may be hiring 75 people within a month, right? Like sometimes it's like a rolling basis. So I would say always be locked in. Always pay attention. But one thing I want to say about working in sports and finding employment is that the industry is so huge and there's so many different ways to get involved in sports. It doesn't have to be with the league or a team or an agency. You could work for a brand and be doing their sports marketing. You can work on the analytical side of sports. So make sure that you're looking at these opportunities and thinking outside the box. I would also say for those who want to be in sports, know that everyone wants to work in sports, right? So it's kind of competitive. So you have to figure out what is your value proposition. So what are you bringing to the table that no one else can? And to me, if you're an HBCU student, you are bringing that experience to the table, and that is what sets you apart, right? So you lean into the value of that to say, I'm bringing a very unique perspective. I'm bringing the culture. I'm bringing a skill set, right, of having dialogue about culture, being able to have conversation about race, because I was surrounded by it by 4 years. And I wish somebody would have told me when I graduated that instead of leaning away from that, right, to make people uncomfortable, I should have leaned into that and said, you need me for this group or this company because I can bring to you an experience that no one else here can. I would also say that it's super important to work on those transferable skills. Whether it's project management, clear communication, follow-up. Part of that is rooted in education and confidence, but these are skills that you can learn regardless of where you're going, because that's what's going to carry you far. And I will say, if you're interested in doing work within diversity, like now is the moment, right? Because after 2020, everyone is looking for top Black and brown talent. And so now is truly the time on your resume where you may have buried A&T, which hopefully you did not. But if you did, you need to put that thing right back to the top and say, you know what, I went to A&T. I'm very well versed in Black culture. I'm very clear on social justice, and I'm here to keep my organization accountable. Like that's the energy that I think this generation needs to bring, because that is where we will change the narrative about HBCUs. Because for me, when I first came in, I was the only Black woman in my office, but I was also the only HBCU grad. I got so tired of people calling it AT&T or asking me what it was. And now it's to the point where I'm like, if you don't know who we are, that's your problem. You need to do the research. And I'm thankful for like the Chris Pauls of the world who are elevating the profile of our HBCUs. I'm thankful for the people consulting the NFL to say during the Super Bowl, you need to acknowledge the HBCU talent that's come through, because they have been just as important to the progress of the game as anyone else. But we have to be in positions to kind of create that accountability and push that. But we have to get there in the first place, right? So I will say the last thing is securing the bag for me, while I understand it is about money and the financial piece is very important, securing the bag is also, you got to show up authentic. You can't show up and fake the funk. It doesn't matter if you're in sports or engineer or science, people will read through that. And part of showing up authentically is doing your work, and that's where your confidence will come in.
Okay, really well said. George, my co-founder and a partner in crime, we are the Bonnie and Clyde of this HBCU Heroes team. George has a question. Go ahead, George.
Yes, this is to Lindsay and Cammie. Actually, Walls too, yourself. What advice would you give the smaller HBCUs that don't have the high profile of A&T, Howard, Hampton, some of those other schools? The smaller schools like Claflin, Miles, Clark is right next door to Morehouse, but doesn't get a lot of love. What would you encourage those students, and how would they go about selling their HBCUs?
Well, to me, it's all about really selling yourself. I have never looked at any institution and felt like, well, that was the strength of that particular person that I'm sitting in front of or whoever I'm viewing. I always try and look at that individual person. I've been so surprised so many times by a person's background, and I wonder, well, where did they get that strength from? Where does that come from? And sometimes it doesn't matter what the institution is. People looked at Grambling. They looked down at Grambling when I went into the pros. At that time, Grambling State University had stopped putting all the players in the pros. So here I come in as a free agent, and they looked at me as something less than. So I took that to heart, of course. And that was the chip on my shoulder that I used. So to me, you just take pride in who you are as a person and realize that wherever you come from, that is your strength. That's just like Lindsay was talking about. You don't have to know who I am or where I'm from, but you will if I'm going to stick to it. So you have to still just believe in yourself. It doesn't really matter the institution. Lindsay is amazing regardless of what school she comes from. That's just the way it is. But she uses that as her parachute, I guess. That allows her a safety. That's her identity. And to me, that's just part of her identity. What she brings to the table is going to be way beyond what North Carolina A&T has taught her. She's going to emulate that with whatever she brings to the table.
That is so true. It starts with you. We're in control, of our destiny from that standpoint. Another thing I'd say to add on to that is having a sponsor. Having someone that you talk to and you're open and say, hey, don't be afraid to say, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to try. I just need access. I need an introduction or what have you. Don't be afraid to ask. But when you have a sponsor, and this was something I learned later in my career, and I always wondered, just like, well, wow, how do certain people tend to move up, progress in different ways so quickly? And what I learned is they have individuals that are in the boardroom, that are in the meetings when decisions are being made about staff and promotions or what have you. So I say to students, don't be shy to say what you want and to go after it. You've got to do the work. But if you share that, get a sponsor, someone that is your ally, your advocate, to help you during those times and those blind spots where you don't know when you need help, that helps you along the way as well.
And I am inspired. Go ahead, Lindsay. I'm so inspired here. It makes me want to go back to college. Go ahead.
No, those points were awesome. But I'll just also add to that and say, for the smaller HBCUs, quantity of students does not always mean quality of education. And I can tell you, I work with people who went to huge institutions that just couldn't stand up against community college students. So we have to change the narrative that just because it's a smaller school, that they're less powerful or less capable. I also think you owe it to yourself if you go to a smaller HBCU to do your research on your institution and figure out who are the trailblazers, and you start to tell those stories to remind the people that you're interviewing with, I may be from a smaller institution, but that doesn't mean that we weren't less successful, that we weren't less impactful, that we didn't make the same difference on our communities. So I think you have to kind of shift that mentality of, we may be smaller and we may not be as large on the map, but we still had the same quality Black experience that a Howard or a FAM or an A&T did. So again, I think it's owning your value proposition and what you bring to the world. I think that's what you have to know, your own value, and then you go into something a little bit more confidently.
Well, you know what? I again, and I know I speak for George and the rest of the participants on the panel as well. I mean, this was so motivational just to hear how you all have made a way in your own career paths, in your own different rights, and are shaping the narrative and the outlook and the employment hiring of different diversity talent pools for your companies. So we appreciate that so very much. And I think that the three of you have put your LinkedIn information or your I know, Lindsay, I just saw that you posted the link for the website for your company. Cami, I think you did as well, but let's just go around and say one more time verbally of how everybody can get in touch with you. We'll start with you, Everson, and go the way around again. And then we will bid you adieu and thank you so much for this. But let's first, how can the students get in touch with with Everson, with your team?
Hold on, sorry about that. With my foundation, ethoseducationgroup.com. You'll see myself, Michael Davis, working with guys like Tim Brown, trying to uplift these young people's ideals of themselves.
Perfect. Cami?
Go to keep it short, the Hawks website, and look for employment opportunities. And to reach out to me personally, LinkedIn is the best. And again, I'd love to, have a conversation.
And she does. Just FYI, I reached out to Cami on LinkedIn and she, within an hour, didn't even know me and she responded. And then we've just been, really ideating from here. So she is absolutely going to respond. Lindsay?
Yes, I would say definitely go on teamwas.com. I put the link in there. I think it's teamwas.com/careers. Look to see if you have something of interest to you.
Oh, that's why I be seeing that truck.
And then once you find that, you can.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
that
Here's some
truck was
funny
parked
stuff.
right here. Then you sped off one day. I was
Can
scared.
we mute
but I
them?
didn't see
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
So yeah, go to teamwas.com/careers. Make sure you find something that you're into. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. But I will say, if you reach out, I want it to be less of, how can you help me? It's more of like, here's what I'm thinking of, and let's work together on it. So that way it's a mutually beneficial conversation, because I'm always also looking to learn from younger folks that are trying to get into the industry. So I would take that path first.
Okay, well, good advice. Well, thank you three so very much for joining us. This was our HBCU career panel, and y'all knocked it all the way out the park. Thank you, Lindsay LeBennett. Thank you, Cami. Thank you, Everson. And you guys have the information to get in touch with them, and we will see you all soon.